Welcome back to the Layman's Law School. Today we're going to talk about our first grade teacher who was shot by her 6-year-old student after warning administrators 3 different times that he had a gun. So,
dear God.
Yeah. 6 years old. Like, I have a 4-year-old. So my brain was like, wait, what? Like, just thinking about the age, right? And so by the end of this episode, we're going to make sure that the viewers understand when schools can be held liable for violence on campus, what negligence really means in a workplace setting, and why this case is making employers everywhere rethink their duty to protect employees. But first
of all,
we are missing Reed today.
Obviously, we have Chase is here with us today, thankfully. And Reed, last minute, bailed on us. Fall break, vacation, something.
I got to be honest, part of me, and I'm sure that Chase feels the same, I was like, we don't have to have Bud Light today.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I was hearing Bill Withers in the background. I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
Chase got here an hour early just because he knew he wasn't going to have to drink a Bud Light. So he's drinking his own, what is that, Tecate?
A little Tecate.
I brought a nooner for Lindsay and myself. So
These are the
it's
ones
Friday.
We like.
Cheers.
TGIF. Cheers.
I'm going to drink mine on ice.
Such a different taste. Different.
Different better or just different?
For Reed's sake, just different. Just different. We should have brought a Bud Light to pour out for him.
No.
Just the smell.
If I don't have to be in the vicinity of it, it's a good day.
All right, well, let's talk about the facts of this case. So the school teacher, her name was Abby Zwerner, and her case is against the Newport News School Board from a shooting that happened in 2023 at Richnick Elementary School. So January 6, 2023, 25-year-old teacher Abby Zwerner is at a reading table with her first grade students, and a 6-year-old boy who is a student in her class pulls a 9mm Taurus pistol from his jacket pocket and fires. The bullet goes through her left hand and into her chest, collapsing her lung. Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting is that
this is in Newport. Is this
Virginia?
Virginia. Okay.
So what's interesting is that multiple staff members had supposedly been warned that same day. One teacher had searched his book bag at 12:30. Another reported that at 1 p.m. the student showed the gun to classmates and threatened them. And Zwerner herself actually texted someone an hour before being shot. So all these things just feel very, kind of just unbelievable a little bit, where it's like, how did that many people be warned and know about this and this still happened? Yeah. School officials allegedly told concerned teachers to wait out the situation. It's almost the end of the day. Let's just see, the school day is almost over.
How about no?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I understand there was, several reports that this child had a handgun. And, just in my mind, until the school system or, at least, I don't know whether this district has school resource officers, police officers, unless they have 100% exhausted the fact that this child doesn't have a gun, especially when there is other students who have said, this child showed me a gun.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
The child should not be in the classroom anywhere. Yeah. And that involves a search of his locker, which the schools have the authority to do. That's not your locker. Right. Your book bag when you're on campus, the school has the authority to search your person, although, most handguns, I don't know that a 6-year-old would be able to shove in his pocket.
What is it? A 9mm is going to be what?
Well, there's a lot of different, this is a Taurus 9mm. I'm not sure of the exact model. But a lot of guns are made specifically to be able to conceal them. Yeah, to make them small, to easy to carry in a concealed way. But it's important to know about the student as well. The student had a history of violence where he had at one point tried to beat another child with a belt. He had been disciplined for trying to choke another teacher. And with this particular teacher, just before the shooting, he had taken her phone and smashed it on the floor and had been suspended for a day. And this was actually his first day back.
Just one day suspension for smashing a $1,200 cell phone on the floor.
Yeah. Yep. And then this was his first day back after he had been suspended. So before we get into the next part, talking about the law part of it, but like just to kind of sum this up, not only was after she was shot, she evacuated the 16 of her students
while shot
before collapsing. And so now she's suing the school board for $40 million. And the twist is the school district has come back and said, okay, well, your injuries should actually be covered under workers' compensation, which would argue that being shot by your student is a part of your job. Which, as the non-lawyer first, and like, can I just say, that is a reason we have a shortage of teachers. If that is what you're saying, is that if I'm a teacher, then it's my job to make sure. Well, I'm just flabbergasted by that statement.
What they're not just saying that your injuries and everything should be covered by workers' compensation. They're saying that the sole remedy that you should have should be workers' compensation. Okay. Because workers' compensation is something that we all pay into, employers pay into, and it is meant to compensate employees who are on the job, who get injured, regardless of the fault, whether it's anybody's fault, whether it's another employee, their own fault. You decide to climb up a shelf that you shouldn't be climbing up, and it tips over and you're injured. Workers' compensation pays those medical bills for that. Another employee does something stupid and harms you. Workers' compensation pays for that. A student shoots you in the classroom. Workers' compensation would be responsible for those medical bills and things because this was a injury that you received while you were working. Okay. What the school board is trying to say, which is sometimes the case, is that workers' compensation is your sole remedy. You can't go after anybody. You can't go after the school board for this because workers' compensation. Sue them civilly. Yeah. And we run into that, a lot. We don't handle exclusive workers' compensation cases because we have some very good lawyers here in the area that specialize in workers' compensation only cases, and we refer them to them. It's it's kind of an administrative type thing. It's not necessarily a trial lawyer's type work. But when there's a third party, non-employee tortfeasor, you're dealing with both aspects. Yeah. Workers' compensation by law has to cover all these medical bills and things because you were injured while you're working. Okay. But we still have a third party tortfeasor involved.
What is a third party tortfeasor?
A tortfeasor is someone who commits a tort, a wrong, whether it be
an act or an omission.
Act or omission, whether it's a negligent act, whether it's a intentional act, battery, punching someone, shooting someone, or whether it's just they failed to do something that the standard of care required. The standard of care being that you have to act like a reasonable person. A reasonable person wouldn't have done that. A reasonable person would have acted this way, and what you did was outside of what a reasonable person would do.
Okay, time out. Because I'm sure we're going to come to this, because now we've jumped into the law part of this a little bit. That being said, if you are a 6-year-old boy, your definition of the standard of care is probably not the same as someone else's because you don't know any better.
That's right. So you are held to the standard of a reasonable person at that age, whatever it may be. We've run into this before when a kid runs out into the street. An adult really knows better. You got a 6-year-old and she's chasing a ball. The standard for them is a little bit different. So that all has to be taken into account. But what Sean said is incredibly important in that the exclusive remedy rule actually is in a lot of states. It's in Georgia and South Carolina, where under these circumstances, she could not really sue to recover for her full damages. The workers' comp system has kind of like a tier, a prescribed payout for a particular type of injury, and that's all you get. And typically, you're fired at the end of that proceeding. And in this case, the teachers brought this suit not only because she was hurt, she was injured, she wants to recover, but also because she wants something done about how schools assess the risk and actually respond to risks that occur. And there are exceptions to the exclusive remedy rule. And they usually occur in, like I said, when Sean said, when there's a third-party tortfeasor, or if there's some sort of personal assault where the employer should have known about the risk of the assault. It's usually when you have a coworker that had a history of violence, that has caused problems in the past, assaulted people in the past, and then they assault somebody at work.
Yeah.
Right. And they didn't really do anything about it. That's negligent failure to basically supervise, and negligent retention. In other words, negligent keeping the employee.
Yeah.
You know.
So in this case, multiple people had warned the administrators. So why weren't they required to do something? At what point does ignoring these kinds of warnings become illegal?
So that's a very, very good question, and that's something that's actually going to be answered.
Area, right?
Yeah. But it's going to be answered coming up in two parts. First of all, the state brings all criminal charges. They're going to pursue the criminal negligence of the administrator in this particular case. And the civil court is going to have a jury decide, whether this rises to the level of gross negligence.
If it ever gets to a jury.
Right now they're saying they can move forward, so it seems to be getting to the right.
Getting some legs on it.
It's getting some legs on it. Judge Hoffman, in this particular case, he heard arguments about the whether or not the exclusive remedy rule applied, and in Virginia they have something called the actual risk rule, and one of the things that they look at is whether or not the risk is something that's inherent to the job. It's a part of accepting that job. For instance, if you're a police officer, getting shot is a risk of the job.
The fireman rule that we've dealt with
exactly.
a lot in Georgia.
If you're a bank teller, banks get robbed. You might have a gun pointed at you at some point. But the judge ruled that being a school teacher is not within the risk of being shot. Go ahead.
I have a question. I'm not being funny. It's going to come across as funny. But because I work in a law office, and y'all piss people off sometimes if they don't get their way about their case, right? Am I at
It's never happened. It's never happened to me.
I'm just saying.
Is that happened in the Aiken office over there?
No, I'm not saying. I just mean, does that put me at an actual risk? Because of the line of work that we do, who's to say somebody walks in our office and comes straight to my office, doesn't know I'm not a lawyer? I mean, we're not in Virginia.
I'll say this, that believe it or not, the two biggest areas, the only lawyers that I've heard being assaulted by their clients
criminal
is
defense.
No, it's very strange. Exactly.
Divorce lawyers.
family law, and real estate of all things. So we've had in Augusta 2 real estate lawyers shot and killed over dealings with property, and it revolves around, like, when it comes to police officers don't like going to the domestic disputes because usually someone's life is falling apart. They're losing a spouse. They're losing their children. I mean, that's a huge. It turns a regular person into somebody that's I'm defending my life here, and the life that I built, and it's closing in around them, and so that can be quite dangerous. But the judge found that in this particular case, it was not within the scope of her employment or the risk of her employment that she would be subjected to being shot with a gun by a 6-year-old. Yeah. And
I think I would agree with Judge Hoffman.
Yeah. And one of the other things they have to prove is that it was actually personal, that when you're actually assaulted, there's some sort of personal assault. They have to prove that it was personal. In this particular case, there was specific animosity. The student had a history with this particular teacher. He'd smashed her cell phone, just leading to a suspension just before this, the student waited until he was back in the classroom to shoot her, and had threatened other students and had not threatened other students or staff with the gun. And it appeared that the student's motive was a personal attack against the teacher. So
it's just sad. I mean, it's absolutely sad. Like you said, you've got a 4-year-old. I've got a 2.5-year-old. I've got a nephew that is 10. I couldn't imagine my nephew, who is 10, having the mindset knowledge or capacity, even if he had access to firearms in the house, to come forward with that plan and execute that plan to do that, much less a 6-year-old, unless that particular 6-year-old had much different exposure in his life to guns, violence, whatever the case may be.
His mother has actually already been sentenced to 21 months in federal plus state time for child neglect. So they have recognized that already.
The way she stored the gun, basically, when the state raided her home, they found drug paraphernalia, as well as if they didn't find any sort of safe where she could keep the gun. They didn't find any trigger guard that she had on the gun or anything like that. And so because of the way she stored the gun in the home, she was charged with this child neglect. In addition, you talk about the experiences the child had. This mother was reported to have shot at his father when she found out that he was cheating on her with another woman, and shot at the father. And apparently in that particular incident, no police were called, no charges were filed or anything like that. So this child has access to guns when he shouldn't. He climbed on top of his mother's dresser to get this gun out of her purse.
Did you say that he witnessed that happening?
I don't know if he witnessed it happening.
Well,
but
imagine
this
if he did.
This is
hypothetical.
This is his.
I think he's just trying to paint the picture of if that's going on somewhere around the child, what else is going on around the child that he did
The person
see?
making decisions about how to raise the child is making choices like that.
Well, my thought was if a child witnesses that, what you just described, and sees, like you said, no police were called in, that sees no repercussions for those actions, then a kid goes, oh, well, it's okay, I can do that.
Yeah,
I can do that too. Like, so that was like, I was like, man, if he did see it, which we don't know, that was speculation.
Sure, and I think just like all these video games that children are playing at younger and younger ages that involve, first-person shooters or, shooting zombies or anything, I think that there's something to say about the reality that children that are exposed to that live in, as opposed to children who are not exposed to that live in.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think as a 6-year-old you are really comprehending that I am shooting this person and possibly going to kill them forever. You are thinking in a reality of, this is what we do in a game. This is what we do when we're pissed off at people, and this is what gets the message across.
Right. This is how I behave. And it's interesting you say being desensitized to this type of violence. I think it's important to remember that in World War I, they did a study of the number of people that actually shot at individuals on the other side, shot at the people attacking them or where they're defending them. Only 15 to 21% shot when they saw the enemy. Actually fired their gun at the enemy in World War I, World War II. They changed the training between then and Vietnam, and they basically just made targets pop up out in the field.
Okay.
Just pop up, and your reaction was just to shoot it as soon as you saw it. All right, and it went up to 75% in Vietnam. So they
I can't imagine what it is now.
Yeah.
Got high 90s.
Yeah.
Guarantee you.
I would say the same.
Yeah. But it's important to know that in order to recover, the states and the school system typically has sovereign immunity. That basically, because the state does so much, you can't sue them for regular negligence. In other words, just regular everyday mistakes. And the easiest way for me to explain that is, let's just say, for instance, you're driving along. You don't see that the car has stopped in front of you. You weren't paying attention just for a second. You rear end them. Yep. That's regular negligence. That's when you should have been paying attention and you weren't. It's an omission. Gross negligence would be, I'm speeding. I've had, 10 beers in the last 3 hours. I'm DUI, and I'm speeding, and I smash into a car while I'm running a red light. That's that, bad behavior where it's really clear you should have done something differently in that particular case. And for Virginia, the standard is that you basically have this duty to act a particular way, or a duty to not act in a particular way. In this case, the plaintiff is claiming that the school had all this knowledge about the kid being violent, had knowledge about the kid having a gun at school, was warned multiple times, and then they failed to act and protect her. And they have to have been acting with gross disregard to prudence. Prudence is basically just being reasonable under the circumstance, and it has to be gross. And in this particular case, they have a pretty darn good argument about gross negligence applying in this case under the facts.
So to look at this from a practical takeaway, you know, what does this mean if this were to happen to someone who's the viewer, right? Like if someone comes in with this similar kind of case, because I feel like there's a parallel a little bit to like premises liability claims, right? Because we're talking about an environment. So Again, it's a very gray area. This whole
it has to do with notice more than anything,
right?
Yeah, notice. I mean, as far as premises liability, that would be like a negligent security, type claim that this particular.
It could be even just a slip and fall, but to hold somebody responsible for premises liability, the owner of the premises has to have knowledge of the particular incident. Either they knew about it or should have known about it. So let's say, for instance, you own a shopping store and there's a spill on aisle 7. Yeah. It's green in color. You've had an hour to discover it. You're supposed to do an inspection every hour. Yeah. You haven't done that inspection. They even if they didn't know about it, they should have known about it. None of these circumstances, the person was on, or the administrators were on notice and even told them to just ride out the rest of the day.
That's the hardest part for me to swallow.
Let's just see what happens. And we're almost done with the day. Yeah. Maybe he'll just go home and take his gun home.
Yeah, that just goes to complacency. I mean, and
come back tomorrow.
Some, we see it all the time that, in this day and age, because of outside factors and the possibility of media outrage and cancel culture and everything. Yeah. People even in authority positions are afraid to act. They're afraid to do too much because they don't want to ridicule this child that may not have a gun. Yeah. Instead of doing what a reasonable person, not taking into account those external factors, would do. And we need to make sure that this child has no gun on his person, in his locker, and if he showed it if I've got 1 or 2 kids that said he showed it to them, well, we're going to err on the side of this kid's out of here. Yeah. That what is the motive for these other 2 kids to lie? We'll figure that out later. But this kid is out of here. His parents
he broke her phone and y'all suspended him. But when people says he has a gun, you didn't do anything to remove him from the classroom.
Sure.
I'm sorry. The school has. I don't know what it is, but from a layman's from a mother point of view. Now I'll take mother out of it, okay? Because that makes me more emotional about it. But just as a person, a smart person, looking at this, going, no, there's something you guys probably should have done if all these facts are true, right? Right now they're just people are alleging certain things, not certain things have been proved. But I think that we, as soon as we bring up, because Reed actually brought this to our attention. I wish he was here today to be able to talk about it. But, he was kind of like, I think this is a good one to talk about because it's anytime you want to hold the school responsible when it comes to shootings and things like that, which we know is a very sensitive topic. But he was like, it's not, hard. It's not just cut and dry. Like,
no, it's very hard.
They have, sovereign immunity, which is an immunity that is based on, English common law. That essentially you can't sue the king. Right. You can't sue the government. The government has, and it's meant to protect the citizens of the government, the taxpayers who are ultimately footing the bill type thing, unless the government gives you permission to do so. And sometimes they do.
Gotcha.
And in this particular case, it's for gross negligence.
Yeah.
Like they gave permission to sue for negligence that basically is you asleep at the wheel.
Sure.
And that really is what I think we're seeing here. And she's suing because at workers' comp she would not get anywhere near what she's asking for in the civil suit. And
workers' comp, she would get her medical bills paid for and any lost time from work that wasn't compensated, and that's pretty much it.
Well, but I think some of the key details that I've read about, or that was in the initial research for this episode, was that she's had 5 surgeries. She still doesn't have the full use of her hand. Mm-hmm. She not surprisingly suffers from PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and she has not returned to teaching. So what this makes me, and I'll get into kind of some of the other things that have happened with the staff, which to me is slightly telling a little bit. Mm-hmm. But if you're her, then you've taken away her livelihood as well. And if I've learned anything from you guys when it comes to, personal injury stuff, well, that's a lot of times people who don't have an attorney, they don't know to use that as like, hey, you didn't just injure me. Like you took away my livelihood, and that should have value to it too.
Absolutely.
And so if you're talking about someone who's a teacher and has a passion for teaching, and now she doesn't want to step in a classroom again because it happened to her, then, she deserves some justice. In the meantime, the superintendent has actually been fired. The assistant principal resigned, and the principal of the school was reassigned after the shooting. Yeah, and they've now installed metal detectors at all of the entrances. The kids come with clear book bags, and they have 2 full-time security officers as a result. And here's the thing. Why does that occur? If you don't have some way to punish, if this was just a workers' comp case, the school board would keep paying their workers' comp premiums. Yep. They wouldn't have any major issues. They wouldn't have to fork out any money. Yep. In this particular case, she's suing them for $40 million, and they're going to be on the hook for paying that. And that motivates people. When you start messing with their budgets and you start messing with the livelihoods of the administrators, where they're going to be personally liable for this, the school's going to be liable for it, then you see a lot of action real quick. So part of what she's doing is actually really trying to protect students going forward, teachers going forward, so that this type of thing does not happen again.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that gives us another thing just to teach the layman out there. Mm-hmm. What you brought up about now that they have metal detectors, now that they have a clear book bag policy and things like that, we refer to those as subsequent remedial measures. Yeah. And normally, we have a lot of clients on different cases that come in and say, well, this is what happened. This is how I was injured. And then they did this.
And now they're doing this.
And now they're doing this. And the law, at least in Georgia, you cannot use those subsequent remedial measures against them. You can't go into court and say, I got injured because of this. And obviously they knew it was a problem because they fixed it. And otherwise, that would be a deterrent
to fix the problem.
Yeah. So there's a policy argument and law in place to keep us from using that kind of thing. And in like that case, I don't know in Virginia or not, but in Georgia, you would never be able to say that the school knew that this was a dangerous environment. They refused to put in metal detectors. They refused to put in a clear book bag policy. You could say all that, but then you could not then go the extra length and tell a jury that
they did do it.
And a week after I was shot in this classroom, they started a metal detector system they put in because that would be
deterring,
an anti-incentive to or deterring people from taking the proactive steps and fixing things or putting warnings on things or putting safety guards in place on devices.
Okay. So what's our takeaway with this one?
When you have notice of an issue, that in an environment in which you control, you have a duty and a responsibility to act. And if you don't act to solve whatever that issue is, that hazard, that risk, that threat, then you are going to be liable for the injuries that result from your failure to make an environment safe, to warn people of the particular risks that they're about to incur. So if you have a place of business, even a home, you have to warn people of known risks and be reasonable in how you respond to risks that you have notice of, and you fix it as soon as possible before someone actually gets hurt. Otherwise, you're going to be liable for their injuries.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
I just feel bad for the woman. It's horrible, and I feel bad for the child.
Yeah. Well, I feel bad for the kid.
Not only, that he is growing up in a world where at 6 years old, his mindset, whether it's because of his living conditions or whether it's because of, he has some type of behavioral disorder or something. I just feel bad for him that he thought that this was appropriate or that he could do this. It's horrible.
I was just happy to see that the judge made the right decision allowing this case to go forward. And unfortunately, we may see in the very near future that when you take a job as a teacher, that being shot might actually be one of the risks that you assume because we have so many school shootings. I think already we're at 400 mass shootings here in the United States. We have basically more mass shootings than we have days in the year already. So something needs to be done about this, and this lady's doing her part by bringing this lawsuit, bringing to every administrator's attention that if you have notice of an issue and you fail to act, that it will cost you, it will cost the school, and that justice will be served, against you in a court of law. So she's doing the right thing and actually bringing this lawsuit. I feel.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm glad we covered this today. Again, I think it's one more way to bring attention to a matter that's obviously very, very important. So next time we're going to have everybody tune in because I have a Fast and Furious episode planned that's going to involve a certain Hollywood star who's in trouble because he let his dogs out. So
who let the dogs out?
I know you can't say that without thinking of that song.
Exactly.
But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to our channel if you want to hear more of the Layman's Law School. Make sure you turn on your notifications to be notified when new episodes hit, and we'll see you next time.